Jake froze, his hand trembling over the velvet box. Both wedding rings were gone. Maddie's voice cut through the silence. I saw something shiny outside last night, and a tail. What the hell was going on? A raccoon? But as the truth began to unfold, it became something far stranger. What happened next will shock even those who thought they'd seen everything. But first, let's go back to the beginning. The morning sun filtered through the Douglas firs, casting long, dappled shadows across the Porter family's backyard as the final touches were set. Fresh wildflowers curled around mason jar vases, their petals trembling in the soft breeze. Emily adjusted her sundress, smoothing it nervously as she surveyed the scene. Handwritten vows folded neatly, lemonade chilled in mason jars, and Jake laughing with Tyler over the makeshift arch he'd built from driftwood. A decade of love distilled into one quiet, golden moment. Then came the silence, the kind that falls like a curtain between one world and the next. It began when Jake lifted the velvet box with the practiced reverence of a man about to hold something sacred. He opened the lid. Empty. His hand hovered. A breath caught. He blinked once, then again, as if trying to summon the rings back by sheer disbelief. Emily tilted her head, teasing, "Very funny." But Jake didn't smile. His eyes were locked on the nothingness inside the box. The mood shifted. Emily's grin collapsed into a confused frown. She took the box herself, checked the seams, the corners. Nothing. The kids, sensing the seriousness, dropped their juice boxes and ran over. "Did you move them, Jake?" "No." "Are you sure they were here?" "Yes, last night. I checked twice." The backyard transformed into a crime scene. Napkins flew, pillows were gutted. The dog, Henry, an aging golden retriever, was subjected to a humiliating mouth inspection before being cleared of suspicion. Emily's voice cracked, half panic, half fury, as she turned over the picnic basket for the third time. Jake rubbed his temples, muttering about retracing steps, but they all knew it. The rings were gone, deliberately, inexplicably. Then, Maddie, their sharp-eyed 9-year-old, tugged at Emily's dress. "I saw something outside last night, something shiny by the woodpile, and a tail. I think it was silver." Her voice was calm, but her eyes glinted with the thrill of being heard. Silver tail. Shiny. The adults exchanged glances, half skeptical, half desperate. A raccoon? A fox? But what kind of animal would steal wedding rings? And why just the rings? The unease thickened like fog in their chests. Jake crouched beside Maddie, asking questions in a careful tone, but she held firm. She hadn't dreamed it. She knew what she saw. And just like that, the day changed. The fairy lights looked more fragile, the laughter of neighbors from across the fence suddenly too loud. Somewhere beyond the trellis, beyond the garden path, in the rustling leaves, something watched. Something that came in the night and took the symbols of a decade of love, for a reason no one could yet explain. Would you like to continue the story from here, or develop a character's perspective next? Jake hadn't slept. He sat hunched over the dining table, bathed in the cold blue glow of his laptop screen, scrubbing through the motion camera footage frame by frame. The air was thick with silence, the kind that clings to the walls after something sacred has been violated. Outside, Pine Hollow was still, dew settling on the rooftops, the trees a dark silhouette against the pre-dawn sky. Emily stood behind him, arms folded tight across her chest, the ghost of sleep still in her eyes. She didn't speak, not until Jake exhaled sharply and hit pause. "There," he said. The screen showed a grainy clip, time-stamped 2:13 a.m. The camera's infrared picked up a flicker of movement near the garden path. Then, unmistakably, the raccoon. It waddled into frame like a little bandit, except this bandit clutched something impossibly delicate in its front paws, a glint of gold. Then another, both rings, unmistakable in the low light. Emily stepped closer, her breath caught halfway. The raccoon paused at the base of the oak tree, claws digging into the bark, then turned its head, right toward the lens. Its eyes shone like twin moons, eerie and unblinking. But it wasn't just the eyes. "Is that—" Emily started, her voice brittle. "Yeah," Jake muttered. "It's wearing something." The footage zoomed, pixels clumping into a digital blur, but the detail was there, something pink. Tied around the raccoon's back leg, a scrap of yarn, maybe, or ribbon, looped tight like a makeshift anklet, too clean, too deliberate. Emily's shock curdled into something more jagged. "That's not wild. That's planned." Her hand flew to her mouth. Jake sat frozen, knuckles white on the trackpad. It was a feeling neither of them could name, the way the ground beneath a familiar world begins to tilt, just slightly. This wasn't random. This wasn't a woodland critter stealing shiny objects. This was a message, or a mistake. Outside, the tree stood tall and inscrutable, its branches heavy with secrets. Jake glanced through the kitchen window toward the gnarled oak that had shaded countless family barbecues, Maddie's tire swing, lazy summer afternoons. Now it felt monstrous, hollowed and humming with questions. "It went into the tree," he said. "Not around it, into." Emily narrowed her eyes. "Then that's where we look." "Would you like to explore what they find in the tree next, or dive deeper into the history of that oak tree and its place in the town's lore?" Jake's hands gripped the rough bark, splinters biting into his palms as he hauled himself upward. The morning sun cut through the canopy in slanted gold beams, but none of it touched his mood. Every creak of the old oak, every sway of the limb beneath him, felt like an insult. "Stupid raccoon," he muttered under his breath, legs straining. "Stupid tree, stupid rings." The last branch scraped his ribs as he pulled himself into the hollow. Then he saw it, and everything stopped. The nest wasn't crude. It was meticulous, woven from strips of fabric, bits of string, wrappers, moss, even the faded corner of what looked like a dish towel. In the center, like artifacts arranged with reverence, sat the rings. They gleamed coldly in a shaft of light, nestled among soft textures and jagged trash, sacred and defiled side by side. Jake's jaw tightened. He reached out, then froze again. In the corner of the hollow, a tiny pile of fur stirred. 3 baby raccoons blinked up at him, their striped masks askew on innocent faces. One sneezed. Another curled tighter around the third. Jake swallowed. The gold was meaningless here. It didn't sparkle like love or loss or memory. It was just warm metal in a mother's fortress. Then he saw it, half buried behind the sticks, where the bark split into a gnarled crease. Something frayed. Pink. He tugged gently, and it came loose in pieces, fibrous and chewed, but still unmistakable. A collar. The tag clinked faintly as he turned it over. "Daisy." He stared at the name until it blurred. The weight of the collar in his hand felt heavier than the rings. Jake's breath hissed out through his teeth. "Daisy," he said aloud, like tasting the name would make it sting less. The raccoon they'd raised, the animal they'd loved like a pet and lost like a child. And now she was here. Not dead, not gone. Just wild. Just surviving. Protecting. The rings hadn't been stolen. They'd been borrowed, redefined, given purpose in a world where value isn't measured in vows, but in safety, in shelter, in love with claws. When Jake climbed down, slower now, the rings clutched tight in one fist. His face was set in something harder than rage. It wasn't righteous anger anymore. It was something knotted deeper, betrayal tangled with guilt. He handed the rings to Emily without a word, eyes locked on the tree, as if it owed him something. Emily didn't need to ask. She looked at the rings, then back to the hollow. Her voice, when it came, was soft but sharp at the edges. "She remembered us." And Jake, jaw tight, replied, "Yeah, and she still took them." Would you like the next part to dive into the emotional fallout, or into how Maddie reacts once she finds out Daisy is alive? The sun was dipping low, painting the sky with streaks of crimson and gold as Jake and Emily stood in the makeshift backyard altar. The soft hum of crickets blended with the lingering scent of fresh-cut grass. The folding chairs, though mismatched, held the weight of significance. The cupcakes, a sad reminder of the morning's chaos, sat untouched on the picnic table. But the tears that glistened in everyone's eyes, from Maddie's quiet sniffles to Tyler's wide, innocent gaze, were the true reflection of the moment. This vow renewal was not the event they had imagined, but in its imperfections, it became something deeper, something raw, something real. Emily held the ring Jake had placed back in her hand earlier, now worn with the weight of both its absence and its return. The delicate band was familiar, yet it felt different, like something renewed and marked by the passage of time. The first time they had exchanged vows, it had been with the nervous hope of a couple just beginning their journey. Now there was something more, something profound, woven into the simplicity of their words. Emily's voice trembled slightly, but her eyes met Jake's with an intensity that told him she was no longer afraid, no longer uncertain. They had found each other again, amidst the chaos and the strange, wild love of a raccoon mother. When Jake placed her ring back on her finger, his hand was steady. The promise they had made to each other 10 years ago now felt like the foundation of something more solid, built on the unexpected resilience of their bond. As they turned to face their children, there was a new understanding in the air, a quiet recognition that family was more than what they had imagined. It was messy, it was imperfect, but it was theirs, woven with threads of surprise and stolen moments, with love in every unspoken word. Daisy, perched high in the oak tree, watched them from the shadows. Her dark eyes gleamed with a knowingness, a silent witness to something sacred, something that no one else would understand. Beneath the canopy, her babies nestled against her, safe in the nest she had crafted from remnants of a world she had once been part of. The rings, now returned, no longer held the weight of stolen treasures. Instead, they had become symbols of something more meaningful, the fragile thread of connection that binds us to those we love, even when we can't see it. That night, as the stars bloomed in the sky, Emily stood by the oak tree, her breath steady but full of an ache she couldn't quite name. She placed a bowl of food at the base of the tree, her fingers brushing the soft earth, and whispered into the cool evening air, "Thank you, sweet girl." The words felt too small for the gratitude swelling in her chest, but they were all she had to offer. A thank you for the rings, a thank you for the reminder of love's strange, untamed forms. The tale of the stolen rings spread through Pine Hollow like wildfire. At first, there were chuckles, jokes whispered over coffee cups, and amusement at the absurdity of it all. But as the story sank deeper into the fabric of the town, something changed. The humor was replaced by something else, something quieter, more tender. No one laughed anymore. They understood. They had seen the threads of love and loss intertwined in the strangest of places. The raccoon, the thief, had not stolen the rings out of malice, but out of an instinct they all knew too well. To love fiercely, to protect what was theirs. And maybe, in the end, that's what made the rings so special. Not the gold or the diamonds, but the love that made them disappear in the first place. Sometimes, what the world calls a theft is just love in disguise, wild, untamed, and beautiful in ways we could never imagine.